Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of FFChamps After Dark. We got a lot of great things to cover. We got a great guest for you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition
and we will get to that in a minute.
After
but
Dark.
right now, I am hearing all kinds of echo in my head because I had the YouTube channel on. So sorry about that, folks. We have a great show for you tonight. We have a great guest. But first, I got to tell you, we are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network, 17 podcasts strong, and looking to add a few more over the next week. So got a lot more things coming at you. Make sure you follow us. A lot of great things going on. You can find us at fulltimefantasy.com. Just pull down the podcast tab and you'll see all kinds of podcasts there. Check them all out. A lot of good stuff. We have Super Flex covered. We have IDP covered. Of course, redraft covered. And we have Andy making all kinds of noise in the background. And we have everything covered. So that's what we do. And so let's get to the show tonight. Of course, my co-host, as always, Mr. Andy Singleton. Andy, how you doing tonight?
I'm all right, Jim. It's been a long week. It's been a rough week here in New York, but I'm okay. I'm just looking at I think I have a hole in my cup, so I'm trying to do damage control. I see the logo over my forehead, so I'm trying to get a better shot. So apologies for any extra noise I'm making. But Jersey Jen, I'm only kidding, of course. Jen doesn't want to be known as that. It's Jen Ryan, a good friend of mine. No. We've met in person. We've hung out. We've toured the town with Pat Thorman and had a grand old time showing off Pat's belt from the Flex Leagues from a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to be surrounded by, this is like I'm with family this week. So good stuff. Let's go.
Okay. Well, like you mentioned, Our guest tonight is Jen Ryan, contributor at FootballDiehards.com, CBS Sportsline, Scout Fantasy, and she's weekly on the Football Diehards show on Sirius Fantasy. So, Jen, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. Andy, that was the fun night out in the city. I think at least 30 people took a picture of Pat's belt. This thing was just getting passed around the bar. It was awesome.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I also had you on with Psycho Les from the Beatnuts.
Yes, that was awesome.
A little Q&A. Somebody who doesn't do anything to do with anything beyond smoking weed and making rap music. I had him talking fantasy football with Jen, so she was schooling him and giving him a lesson, but
you mean there's people out there that smoke weed? Really?
And rap.
Oh no! Why would they do that? I don't know why anybody would do that.
I didn't know it was that kind of
party. So let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. Not really a lot of news, except Darius Geis is now on the IR. Man, it seems to be his place in history is going to be on the IR. This kid just can't get healthy. Jen, I'll ask you first. What's your thoughts on this kid? You think this kid's ever going to rebound and get on the field and show us what he could do?
I mean, sure, of course he could, but for fantasy purposes, as unfortunate it is that he is on the IR, Adrian Peterson was so cheap this offseason. I got him in a ton of best ball leagues. I have him in a dynasty league. I think I have him in the Scott Fishbowl or maybe the Flex leagues. He's somebody that I have a lot of ownership on because he was the cheaper back in that backfield. And let's face it, there was an injury risk. And it's a shame that it happened. I mean, fortunately, it's not the knee that he already previously injured, but bad enough for him to be on IR.
How about you, Andy? What's your thoughts on Geis, Peterson, even Thompson?
I found it very strange that Adrian Peterson wasn't inactive in week 1. So they really had, high hopes. I mean, this was like we might not need you. So, stay in the waiting room. We'll call you if we need something. And sure enough, they needed him. It's just Adrian Peterson tried and true. So I fire him up, ready to go for me. I'm happy with that. I feel bad for Geis. I have said I came around 180 degrees on him. I was really a critic of his entering the draft. The whole story about, him leaking stuff that was asked of him that was inappropriate. And then, maybe it was made up, maybe it wasn't. I thought there was some immaturity things going on with him. And then come around and the knee issue. I've personally spoken with him. We DM'd each other a few times back and forth. He was going to come on and guest with me on shows I do to talk about what was going on with his knee last year. Never came to be, but I really grew a lot of respect for him. It wasn't because he talked to me and gave me the time of day, but because he really seemed to grow up a lot in a year. And you see, he would stay after practice and throw balls around fans for an extra 2 hours and all that kind of stuff. I was looking forward to seeing what he could do. I know he was dynamic in Fournette's absence at LSU. I wasn't really a big believer in his. I like Sony Michel a lot better coming out of that class. But hey, listen, the track record was there, so yeah, why not? And unfortunately, doesn't look like we're going to get to see that. I just dropped him in a home league and picked up. I don't even remember who I picked up. Alexander Madison to replace him because running back is kind of thin, but it's just sad.
I like Madison.
Chris Thompson's really, I think, the guy you got to look for more. Than Peterson. Not that I don't think Peterson's good, but I would expect this to be more Peterson's, not more Thompson's role than Peterson. Going forward, if you only had to choose one of the two.
Yeah, I agree. I like Chris Thompson too, and we know that a reception is about 2.87 times more than just a carry alone. So you definitely want those running backs with the receptions. And I agree. I have a lot of Thompson, but I'm with Jen. I also have a lot of Peterson because the price was so cheap, and because of Geis's injury history and the fact that even after the surgery, he had to have multiple other surgeries, and then he had another setback, and of course now this one. So hopefully he can turn it around. Again, I always bring back the Fred Taylor talk, because this is how Fred Taylor started his career. First couple of years, couldn't stay on the field, couldn't do anything. They gave him the name Fragile Freddy, and then all of a sudden, there you go, down that. And then all of a sudden he got healthy and stayed healthy and went on to have a great career. Hopefully you guys can get there. I'd like to see it.
He'd need an expansion team, though.
Say what?
He'd need an expansion team. Fred Taylor rebounded with Jacksonville, no? Or did he always start Jacksonville?
Yeah. Okay. It took me a second to catch what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah.
So let's get into week 2. I definitely want to see some thoughts of people of what you have going on. There was a lot of craziness in week 1, as we always expect. But we got into week 2 last night with the Tampa Bay Carolina game. And I'll start with you first, Andy. Give me one takeaway you took from that game last night.
Last night, something's really different with Cam. Something I'm truly worried about. I tweeted earlier today, Cam not running is like a knuckleball pitcher relying on fastballs. It's just it ain't going to work. It's just not a good recipe. He needs to run for his own thing to work. You could see there were times clearly like where the things were breaking down and he would normally run, and that's where Shaq Barrett's getting all these sacks on him. That normally he's running through those. The fact that they have a 4th and inches, 4th and 1, whatever you want to call it, whatever the distance was, it was not far. And this was a must need. This was the game on the line, and you're running a trick play to the outside on a sweep. Like, it just did not make any sense at all. So that's something I'm definitely worried about going forward with Cam. I mean, his inaccuracies haven't gotten any better. The things that separated him still made him viable. Or, as I say about Josh Allen, he's a gamer. He would keep his team in games just because of his will to win and his legs and his strength and his just unique size advantage on other people. You take that away, he's not a good passer. So there's problems there. That's my big takeaway.
How about you, Jen?
I mean, definitely echoing everything Andy said. I mean, obviously there's something up with Cam Newton. Is it the shoulder? Is it the ankle? Is it rust from not taking a single preseason snap? I don't know what it is, but I think if we're going to say Cam is declining, if we're going to use that word, I feel like North Turner's declining a little bit too. I thought the play calling was a little bit questionable last night for Carolina, especially like you said, that trick play at the end of the game. Like, you don't run that there. And North Turner is such a veteran guru offensive play caller. I was shocked when I saw that. We still saw the tight end usage like we're used to seeing with him. And, old ass Greg Olsen is still doing it, which is like amazing. But I think as much as there's something up with Cam, there's something up with Norv. And I don't know if it's this intentional play calling to try to mask what's actually going on with Cam, but that's not like the Norv Turner offense that I'm really used to seeing.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's another good point. The one thing I will say, everybody was griping that, on that last play, why didn't Cam go up over the top like we've seen him do so many times before. But to me, that's absolutely not the smart move when you're dealing with a quarterback just coming off a major shoulder surgery, trying to change his throwing motion, all that. You don't want him going up over the top and getting pounded on by defensive players.
Then he shouldn't be playing.
I was going to say that's kind of what he does.
No, they could have played. They could have called many other things except for that trick play. But at the same time, they did put it in their most dynamic playmaker's hands. And if he gets in, nobody says a word. And he just missed getting at least the first down. So it is what it is. But everybody clamoring for him to go over the top after that shoulder surgery just doesn't make any sense to me. The one thing I will take from that game last night is that the Tampa Bay defense this year is not the Tampa Bay defense we've seen the last couple of years. Bolin has definitely gotten that team playing much better. They're attacking more. They're in the face. They took away in this game last night. They did exactly what they wanted to do, if I'm thinking about it, because they took away Christian McCaffrey, their biggest weapon. They took him away all game and forced Cam to beat him, even though everybody knows Cam isn't 100%. And to me, that was the perfect play calling for the defense, and it worked. They got the win, and that's what you got to do in this. And even without a perfect game by Tampa Bay, they got the win on the road. So against the division rival. So
yeah, I'm not sure I could agree with that though. As I mentioned with Cam, you take away one of the things that separates him. The only other person that got a rushing attempt was Curtis Samuel. I mean, what happened to the talk of Jordan Scarlett from the preseason? Cam, Artis Payne, if you want. I mean, is he even on the roster anymore? I'm not sure, but still, you give every touch to McCaffrey. I don't have a problem with that. He only had 16 carries, and you could say some of that has to do with what the defense was doing.
I did say that. I'm pretty sure I said that. Yeah,
I'm saying you could say
I did say that. It's not that I could. I did.
I'm saying it has to do with the fact that Cam is not an accurate passer. When you take away what separates him and distinguishes him, now they don't have to worry about that being an option. So they could, if they weren't handing the ball to McCaffrey, they knew Cam wasn't running. It seemed to be obvious, and
they did what they had to do to stop the obvious threat, which was McCaffrey.
That doesn't mean that I'm all of a sudden buying into Tampa Bay's defense. That's what I'm saying. I disagree with.
I'll tell you what. Through 2 weeks so far, they've looked pretty good. Is all I'm saying. A lot better than last year, where everybody was going after them. Anybody who played them, those were the guys you wanted. I don't think it's going to be that easy this year. Is all I'm saying. I think they're going to continue to get better. I love the coach they brought in. I think he's going to make a difference. So let's keep going. That's enough about last night's game. So let's get into week 2, Sunday, Monday. And I asked you guys to come up with a sleeper and a bust. So let's start with sleepers. And I'm going to go to you first, Jen. Who's a sleeper for you this week?
I'm going with Gus Edwards, and I'm not chasing what he did last week. I'm not chasing the out touching of Mark Ingram. It's the game script in this one. You have Baltimore at home, favored by 13 points. They're not going to roll Ingram out there in the second half as much if the game is out of hand. And I think you're going to see a lot of garbage time Gus Edwards. So if you're desperate on your waivers and you need somebody to plug in this week, I think he's like a pretty nice option if you're desperate at the flex position. I think you could probably roll him out in a tournament or two. I think last week, again, the out touching Mark Ingram had to do with the fact that it was a blowout. I think we're expecting a little bit of a blowout this week. And, in close games, you're not going to see that. They pay Mark Ingram what they're paying him to come in and carry the ball, but it's a long season. And when you have these games where you're up 2 scores, I think you're going to see a nice little dose of Edwards in the second half.
Ooh, so she goes with the Gus the Bus. I like it. I like it. Let's see if it comes to fruition. I'd actually like to see them get Justice Hill more involved, but I could see Gus getting in there as well. And being a play. We'll see what happens. How about you there, Mr. Andy? Who's your sleeper this week?
Well, I was going to tell it's going to be a wide receiver, and I was going to tell you somebody I've been touting all offseason. I said John Brown was Josh Allen's best receiver he's ever played with. It all kind of got, okay, whatever. Everybody wanted Robert Foster, this, that, third. Obviously, the biggest surprise of week 1 was the resurgence of some wide receivers that people had left out to pasture. So I'm going to go with the rookie who it doesn't seem like people are buying into yet, and that's Keyshawn Johnson. I said he's emerging as one of Kyler Murray's weapons, And you look at the first week, he was up there at the team lead in targets, finished with 5 receptions. Wasn't for a whole lot of yardage, but that's not what this guy's going to be for you anyway. So give me the guy that's getting the receptions, that's moving the chains, and I'll take that. So I like Keyshawn Johnson for where he's going. People still not ready to believe or buy into him. But yeah, it's definitely a weird week to try to figure out what's going on, because there were at least 5 wide receivers in week 1 that people were like, he's still in the league. I mean, that it was that kind of reaction for some of these guys. And it's interesting. Are they going to keep that going or not?
Oh, that's a ballsy call. Keyshawn Johnson going up against the Ravens this week. I think Kyler Murray's going to be running for his life all game, so we'll see what happens out of that. It's going to be interesting. That offensive line is definitely still as terrible as it will be. My sleeper of the week is going to be Rex Burkhead. A couple of reasons. First of all, they are going against Miami. It's pretty much all hands on deck for any Patriots player, because they're pretty much all going to get involved in this. I don't know what you want to call it, killing zone, whatever. Miami's half the team wants to leave the team already. It's going to be nuts for this team all year. New England, like Baltimore last year, Bill Belichick has no problem running up the score, so he's going to get everybody involved. Plus, there's rumors floating around now that the team wants to try and trade Rex Burkhead so that they can get Damian Harris on the field, because Damian Harris in week 1 was a healthy scratch. They want to get him on the field. So there's a lot of rumors floating around through the beat writers that New England is going to try and showcase Burkhead so that they can trade him. And, what better game to showcase him in this game, a game they really don't need Sony Michel to go crazy to get a win. I mean, let's face it, they're favored by 19 last I saw, and the money line was some crazy number. I got to find it for you.
No, I
have it.
Minus 2,200 was the last I saw.
I actually love this call by you, and the protagonist and the antagonist. I'm not even sure which tagonist I want to be with this, but wants me to say what you said. Shouldn't we see Damian Harris more? We know what we get from Rex Burkhead, but if they're auditioning for a trade, makes a ton of sense. By the same measure, shouldn't this mean Sony Michel? Like, let's get the positive vibes going again. Let's get him his 100 yards. Let's get him his 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but that could be in the first quarter.
Okay. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not saying sit Sony Michel.
Okay.
I like I said, all hands on deck. If you got a New England Patriot, I want to start him against Miami.
This feels like a practice for the Patriots.
And it probably will be.
Yeah.
There's rumors flying around, too, that there's no James White going down to Miami this week. So that's obviously going to put Burkhead up.
I've seen that shot down, though. I've seen that, and then I've seen it. Yeah, and then I've seen it.
I didn't even see that. I've been working all day. I didn't even see that.
He's having a kid, but this isn't Major League Baseball where they'll give you 3 days off, for paternity leave. I mean,
yeah, but for this game, they may very well give him the day off.
Listen, if he misses one of 16 games, we know how important these games are to NFL players. If he misses the game for the birth of his kid, nothing wrong with missing a game for the birth of your kid, but we know.
I thought you were going to say nothing wrong with missing the birth of the kid.
No, but nothing's wrong with this, but we know how important these games are for NFL players. If you're missing a game for this, that is the biggest slap in the face to Miami beyond, anything I've seen.
Oh, they don't care about that, though. What do they care? I wouldn't care about that either. It's my kid. My team says, okay, I'm good with it. I have no problem with that. I could care less what Miami thinks about it. Like Bill Belichick always says, you don't want me to score 60 points. Don't let me score. Simple as that. You want to stop this team, then stop this team. So it's going to be interesting. But, I like Burkhead this week. So let's go on to bust. And I'll start with you first this time, Andy. Who's your bust of the week?
McCaffrey.
Yeah. I think you're so wrong. He's going to go off for so much. I was seeing so many DFS articles, and everybody was, oh, man, you got to put McCaffrey in as captain. There's no choice. 90% owned, but you got to go with it anyway. The other 10% are just fools. Yeah, those other 10% probably won.
I'm not having a great track record so far this season in week 1 with, my predictions here. So I feel a little skittish, but I'm going to say Antonio Brown. I think there's a little too much helium for his first week. And listen, it's going to be like a practice. So maybe there will be times where, Brady's incomplete and the refs and Miami and everybody just says, you know what, let's do that again because this is like a practice. So maybe he could be successful, but I just think there's too much going on, and maybe this is not the week to say, oh, he's back, let's just trust him to be AB.
Might be the only week he's on the field.
That's true as well. So if you want to play him, this might be the week you need to. I'll just say I think he's a little too low, and I have him up too. He's top 30 in my wide receiver rankings, but I feel like it's just maybe a little too lofty. Just given everything that's going on. Any
thoughts there, Jen?
About Antonio Brown or my
bust? About Antonio Brown. We'll start with his.
I have to tell you, and I know this probably isn't like a super popular opinion, but I'm kind of rooting for Antonio Brown, in a sense.
Like the underdogs, do you?
Well, I feel like he's had such a interesting and rough off season, and I think we've been, aside from the recent stuff, which is, obviously still playing out, but like aside from that, we've been blaming him for a lot of things this off season. I blame the Raiders for mismanaging him just as much as anything else. I kind of hope he goes for like 10, 150 and 2 touchdowns just to kind of remind everybody that he's one of the best wide receivers to ever play football. So we'll see. And now, he's hooked up with one of the best quarterbacks to ever play football. So I'm curious to see what they do, how they use him, and what sort of debut he has down in Miami. And then as far as a bust, if we're going there now.
We're going there. Go for it, girl.
We're going there. I feel bad saying it because he had such a huge week last week. He came out of nowhere, led the league in targets, but I think we need to chill out on Jamison Crowder a little bit. The quarterback change, all that stuff. I think we see a super heavy dose of Le'Veon Bell this week. They gave him the ball last week, but they didn't really give him those, in Pittsburgh, we're used to 25 plus, carries. I think totally had like 23 or 24 total touches. I think they're going to lean heavily on him in the run game. Trevor Siemian loves to check the ball down. Who better than to Le'Veon Bell? They gave him all this money. They're going to really need to lean on him in Darnold's absence. I think a lot of people can get really buried in the stats while they're setting their lineups and this week and their waiver ads and say, oh, he had 17 targets last week. I got to get him in there. Probably hard to bench depending upon who you have. I don't think you should expect that same target share that you saw last week.
This Monday night game is going to tell us a lot about the Jets and about the Browns. Both. I'm not expecting the Jet win, but if this is a competitive game, it's going to speak a lot to the team around them, and hopefully that Darnold coming back and being the centerpiece could be something. It's also going to say a lot about the Browns. If this is not a blowout for them after getting embarrassed in week 1 on national television, everybody predicting them to go to the Super Bowl, everything like that, it's going to speak a lot to them as well. So I'm excited for this Monday night game, and not just as a Jet fan.
Me too.
It's going to be interesting to see what teams show up. I mean, Jets still have a good defense. It's going to be interesting. That offensive line of Cleveland was really bad in week 1. We'll see if they can rebound at all. Everybody made fun of the Giants getting Kevin Zeitler from them. That might have been a big hole in their line.
No, that was actually the one I got right last week. I said Chubb was my bust.
Yeah, there you go.
So.
Well, you made fun of my bust last week. It did pretty much come out to exactly what I said it would, didn't it? I told you Juju would be a bust. I told you he'd probably top out at about 12 points. So he had a little over 13.
But you were wrong.
No, I was. Yeah, I was wrong. So I'm going to go for it again. I like to live on the edge. And my bust of the week is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Minnesota just has such a good record against him. 4 out of the last 5 times they've faced him, they've kept him under 300 yards passing and a couple of times well under. And he's only passed for 1 touchdown in each of those 4 games. The 5th game, of course, he threw for 374 yards, had 3 touchdowns, ran in another one. So that's always there and always possible. But I'm going to bet on the Vikings. They looked pretty good last week. Green Bay did not seem like they were working on the same page at all. So I'm going to double down and say Rodgers is my bust of the week. Any comments?
No.
It's a tough division game. I'm with you on Rodgers this week. I don't think we should really expect too much. You mentioned all those previous records against Minnesota, and he just had that one game that was really good. I really think those teams play each other pretty tough, pretty consistently.
I have him.
Oh,
I have him right now as my QB 11. So, but for me, the quarterback position is like 4 to 32 is one tier.
Yeah, right. There's so little that differentiates any of them. I get you. That's why
I feel
when it
like
comes to rankings, it's so crazy.
we're all in that league where somebody took Aaron Rodgers early, right? He never really lasts, and whoever took him, they're not sitting him, So
and that's
just
and that goes back to I was joking around about my bust being McCaffrey, but people were actually upset that people because he didn't do well, and then the people that said, or like me, I had him running back one of my rankings this week. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You drafted this guy 1 overall, top 3 overall. Like, you're not benching this guy ever, short of him being injured or questionable or whatever. So let's be realistic. You got Aaron Rodgers. You're playing Aaron Rodgers. You'd rather see him fail in your lineup than be on your bench with an Aaron Rodgers kind of day. So, sure, we call him a bust, but I want to make a new rule. No future sleepers or busts are allowed to be from the quarterback position on this show going forward.
Oh, you're making a new rule, are you?
I'm hoping to, because this to me is like, this is a no-brainer. All right, it might be sleeper. Who are you starting over Aaron Rodgers? I mean, if you drafted 2 quarterbacks early, you're talking about like
how
Rodgers.
about Josh Allen?
All right, that's kind of fair, but I would see that as like.
Are you starting him over Aaron Rodgers? I mean,
I am this week in 2 leagues. I'm starting Josh Allen.
Are you?
That's
awesome.
Yes, I am.
That's awesome. I love it. It's bold.
Allen's going against the Giants, Giants too, and they just looked terrible last week. I think that same thing's going to come to play this week.
But
pretty good.
But this goes back to what Jen was saying. Like, you took Rodgers early, so even if you have an option like Josh Allen or as Mendel Bruce saying Derek Carr, John Reed saying maybe Andy Dalton, maybe fine. Then why did you draft Aaron Rodgers?
Well, because I still expect him to have a good year. I just hate this matchup. Minnesota has matched up well against him in 4 of the last 5 games. To me, that's pretty much a trend, and I like to follow trends. And unfortunately, a lot of trends, they tend to get to be trendy and then say, well, you know what, it's time to flip the script. And all of a sudden he goes off. And it's very possible, but I don't like him this week. So I'm sitting him. I got Josh Allen starting in a couple leagues over him. It's what it is. I have him at I think I have him at number 15 for the week.
All right. Who? Allen? I have Allen.
Rodgers.
I have Rodgers at 11, Allen at 14, and then my ball is just asking Jimmy G or Aaron Rodgers, and I think we both agree Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Jimmy G right now. Sorry. I've never been a huge Jimmy G guy. He looks better than he plays. So I'm not a huge fan.
Whoa.
He's not wrong.
What the hell was that? Whoa. What'd you do? Spill a beer all over yourself?
Nah, I was wondering what you meant by that exactly.
Hey, I'm manly enough to say when a guy is good looking. Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I would never say that about you, but I have no problem saying that about him.
Oh, good. I'm in love with Jacob deGrom, so it's all good.
Okay, so, as we mentioned, we had a lot of outliers from week 1, which is the norm, except everybody every year goes crazy about it, overreacts, goes nuts. So let's look at some of those players that went kind of crazy, either good or bad in week 1, and we'll try and go through them pretty quickly and see what we can expect from them going forward. And I'm going to start with Matt Stafford, number 4 QB, week 1. 3 touchdowns, 385 passing yards, 27 for 45, 45 attempts. Big game for him. And I'll start with you first, Jen. Is this something we can expect from him going forward, or was this a week 1 anomaly?
I mean, I hope so. He's one of my quarterbacks in the flex league that we spoke about earlier. He's it's a 2 QB league. I have him and Brady, and the matchup was great last week. This week he has a really, really tough one. He's at home, but it's the Chargers, and we all know about the Chargers defense. Stafford's not a guy that you can just like set and forget at quarterback. He's not a Brady, he's not a guy that you're not going to bench, right? He's more of a guy you're going to stream. I really love Stafford in games when, of course, they're projected to play from behind. I mean, the guy, he just throws the ball. Running game, I know it was only week 1, really nothing much there that we could get too excited about. I know Kerryon was a hot name in the offseason. It just didn't really come to fruition in that game. But again, just throughout his career, Stafford's going to sling the ball. So in those games where he either has a soft matchup or where they're expected to trail, by 5 or more points, he's the kind of quarterback you're looking at least for me. And again, in my 2 QB league, I really need him to have a great year.
Oh, there you go. What's your thoughts there, Andy?
I'm more worried about Kerryon Johnson than Matthew Stafford. I mean, we saw the whole thing about that. He had this back injury last year. He was playing with a broken back, basically. Like, who broke whose back? Superman or Batman? Superman broke Batman's back. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a big superhero guy, but fine. He was playing all 2018 with a broken back. This is a guy that disappointed because of what we wanted him to be, and then when you look at what he did last year, it still wasn't horrible. But it makes sense. Wow, he did all that with a broken back. So now he goes out and lights it up week 1. Yeah, that's Matthew Stafford for me. I'm not worried about Matthew Stafford. I'm ready to play him any week. Maybe this week against Chargers, it's not 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Maybe it's 2 touchdowns and 1 or 2 picks. Whatever. In fantasy, you can live with that. I still think he's going to be around the 300-yard mark. TJ Hawkinson is –
he's the real deal.
He is the real deal. I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on that as well. But when I say pump the brakes, I mean not expect 13 targets, 7 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown every week right away. I think
a lot of mouths to feed in that offense.
I think we'll have more weeks again like this, but not week in and week out. But definitely the real deal. I mean, I was kind of worried about Hawkinson going to play with Stafford because Ebron was supposed to be this. And then it seemed like, hey, you know what? Detroit offense, maybe it's Stafford, maybe it's the offense, whatever it is, doesn't really seem to fit tight ends. They like the wide receivers. Well, Hawkinson in one game blew that whole concept and theory up. So he's got weapons to throw to. He's got receivers he can throw to. You look at Galladay, you look at Marvin Jones, you look at Hawkinson. Like I said,
went off.
Danny Amendola. I'm more worried about Kerryon Johnson. And again, now facing this Chargers defense. This could be 2 bad weeks in a row for Kerryon Johnson, who was everybody's breakout.
I think they bounce back with Kerryon this week. Even though it's a tough matchup, I think they try to get him much more involved and really want to get him on. This is what the team wants to do. They brought in coaches specifically so that they can become a more run-oriented offense, and that's what they want to do. The one thing I will point out about Stafford is he had 45 attempts in this game. Last year, he only had 2 games all season where he had 45 attempts or more, and both of those were in week 1 and 2 last year. From there on, he was averaging just over 30 attempts a game, 32 attempts a game, I think the number was. Than when I looked at it. So he only hit 45 twice last year. So I'm gonna call foul. I don't think he hits that number. Maybe twice more this year, but I don't see it. I think they try to get Kerryon Johnson moving this week, and I'm a little off on Stafford. Let's go to Dalton. Another big week 1. He was number 8 quarterback. Threw for 418 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Threw the ball 51 times. And I'll start with you, Andy. What do you think we see out of Dalton? Is this going to be a new trend? Is the new coaching staff really going to continue to air it out at this big a rate?
Yeah, I believe so. And you're seeing a healthy John Ross, who was a first-round pick. Lest we forget. I'm surprised he did what he did, but I'm only surprised he did what he did, not because I don't think he possesses the talent, but because we haven't seen it before. So, you start to question now, can this guy do it? Is he just a college player? He showed me once. He showed me, yeah, maybe this is the first-round pick. And we completely think differently of John Ross at the end of the season than we did after week 1. So I don't think we could discount it and just be like, this is just a flash in the pan. I definitely think Dalton's buying into this new offense. I definitely think they're going to be throwing it out a lot more. I wanted Zach Taylor for the Jets, and I want anybody over Adam Gase. And I was wanting Zach Taylor as the OC, and then I came to the realization, no, he's going to get a head coaching position somewhere. And I was ready to go all in for that. I mean, let's skip the whole coordinator position and go right from, position coach to head coach. Let's do it. I'm down for that. if you're giving me Zach Taylor and we can buy into this new kind of offense, which Dalton and the Bengals seem to have bought into. So I definitely believe it. Not to mention, I don't think their defense is really that good. So I think they're going to be trailing and in a lot of games where they're going to have to come back and throw the ball around a lot. So, yeah, do I think they're going to be as pretty as what they were in week 1? No. But do you have that potential for volume every week with Dalton? Absolutely. So, I'm into this new aerial attack for Cincinnati.
How about you, Jen? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm into it this week against San Francisco. I'm concerned about the schedule after this week. You have the Bengals going to Buffalo, hosting the Steelers, hosting the Cardinals, going to Baltimore, hosting the Jaguars, going to Los Angeles to face the Rams. That's not going to be a ton of games where I'm going to be looking at Andy Dalton to my quarterback. Those are some tough defenses. It's a bit of a tough skid for them. But this week, love it. Love the matchup against the 49ers. I'm with you, Andy, in the sense that I do project they'll be playing from behind a lot, so there's going to be a lot of throwing. But I think he's going to be spending a lot of time kind of on his back in a few of these games. He's got some pretty tough defenses coming up.
The only thing I'm going to add to that is that I think he's got a tough defense going up against him this week. San Francisco, that new defensive line is going to be pretty good. Nick Bosa, definitely came to play, and D Ford, they got Quan Alexander. They have a lot of better defenders and put a lot of pressure. Of course, it was Tampa Bay, but they did force him to make the mistakes that he made. It's going to be interesting. Plus, Cincinnati's going to be without their left tackle, Gordy Glenn, who's been ruled out with a concussion. So that's going to be a big blow. Whether or not they can withstand the Nick Bosa, D Ford combination at defensive ends is going to be interesting to see for me, and whether or not Andy Dalton even has time to throw. So I'm a little off of that myself. And besides, the one thing we know about Andy Dalton is he's always been a good player in September. It's after that he seems to fall off the table. So we'll see if that trend continues with the new head coach or not. Let's keep moving. We go to Case Keenum, who for Washington last week, who in the first half destroyed Philadelphia, ended up throwing for 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I'll start with you, Jen. What's your thinking on Case Keenum? Can he keep this up going forward?
Yeah, I think he can. I think they're going to let the rookie develop behind the veteran in Keenum. Last week he threw the ball 44 times. This week, obviously the Cowboys are coming to town. Their defense slows the game up a little bit. I don't think he's throwing it 44 times. I don't think, there's going to be a lot of those down the field sort of like YOLO balls. But, Keenum's going to be a guy who he's going to stay cheap and daily all year. When bye weeks come up and you need a quarterback, he just might be on your waiver wire. I think he's going to be, like a QB2 basically, who's going to have his QB1 weeks. You're not going to get, he's not going to be the QB1 in scoring most weeks, but, he might be average enough where you get that 18, 20-point floor that you might be looking for in some of his bigger games.
The only problem I have worried about that is if Washington gets off to like a 0-3, 0-4 start, how long is it going to be before they actually throw Dwayne Haskins in there? And then we see what goes on with them. So that's just a little concerning for me. Whether or not Case Keenum gets to even half season, I'd be really surprised because I think Washington is going to be hard-pressed to win games.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm still laughing at YOLO balls, but I don't think it's any fault of Case Keenum. I just don't know that he's going to get the time that you want. It's going to be, it's going to be Haskins' job sooner than later. I've been telling everybody since January to believe in Terry McLaurin, and finally people are coming around. And, there were a couple of us, waving the pom-poms for Terry McLaurin way back in January. Nobody remembers us now because all of a sudden he's becoming everybody's darling, especially after an impressive week 1. But listen, the kid is for real. He's a legit talent. He's a legit playmaker. He can run the full route tree. He's got track speed. The entire Ohio State Buckeyes receiving corps from last year has track speed. It's insane. They're all a blur. But there are some weapons. And, we were talking about Adrian Peterson at the top of the show. With Darius Geis being out, he's no slouch. I mean, it's just becoming a more veteran presence back there. It's not, something you're going to get excited about in dynasty leagues or if you're a Washington fan for your future. But on a week-to-week basis for fantasy, Adrian Peterson in the backfield is not any downgrade from what Darius Geis was, could have been.
No, I would say he is only for the fact of he's not really involved in the passing game. So as we saw last year, he had a great year, 1,000 yards with all of the injuries Washington had. Great year. Definitely much more than I expected from him by far, pretty much than anybody expected from him. But the fact of the matter is there were plenty of games last year that he came up short in fantasy because if he doesn't score that touchdown, then he's not getting you anything more than single-digit points.
No, my only point, though, was that Adrian Peterson in the backfield is respectable enough. This isn't Samaje Perine that is now in the backfield, and all of a sudden they're just going to be teeing off on Case Keenum. No, my point is
all I know is I wouldn't want to go through life with the name Perine.
Well, LaMichael Perine is maybe has a nice future down in Florida. But anyway, that's another topic for another show for another day. I don't think Adrian Peterson is that significant of a detriment to the backfield.
Oh, no, I agree with that. Absolutely. The defense has to respect him.
This team,
what you're trying to say in a very long-winded way.
Yes, this team. Okay. Sorry for being so long-winded. This team has receivers. There's just a few that nobody really knows their name or believes in yet.
Well, there's been a reason nobody believed in most of them. They haven't done anything yet. But I'm with you. I was on McLaurin too. I liked what he did in college. I love the fact that he got drafted by the same team that drafted his quarterback. I want to see what those two can do when he does come in to start.
There was some. So I got to hang out with him a little at the Senior Bowl. There was something about him.
He just loves dropping names, Jen. He don't get used to it. He
because
dropping names.
Last
week he had dinner with Trump. He just loves dropping names.
Don't say that. I might lose another 5 followers today.
Did he pay at least?
Yeah.
No,
well, it was McDonald's.
This didn't happen. So the thing that stood out to me about him was he was very soft-spoken and mild-mannered, and there would be a switch. And he's the type of player that turns the switch on. And when the pads were on, when it's in play, he was an animal. He was a dog. He was a beast. He was in your face. He was blocking. He was popping. He was talking up to his, to the other wide receivers with him. And then the switch would go off, and it's okay. I'm off. I'm mild-mannered now. It was something you don't see with everybody. It's not something that everybody's capable of doing, and it really stood out to me about Terry McLaurin. So I've been a fan of his for a while now.
Yeah, but is he good looking?
He actually, he's no Jimmy G, but yeah.
I'm Googling him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he hit the ugly tree.
So John Reed in the chat room, and thanks, John, and everybody else who comes to listen and join us in the chat. We appreciate it. He wants to know, you go Goff over Kyler Murray this week, correct? Yeah. How about you guys? Any dissenting opinions here?
No.
No, I mean, yeah, I think you go Goff over Kyler Murray. But look, I don't think Kyler Murray, despite the matchup, is such a terrible play. Love the way he came back last week. That was some big boy football for the rookie. And again, you look at the point totals; they're projected to lose by 13. Well, the line's 13. I mean, he's going to have to throw the football. I think he'd be
coming back to too. It'd probably be a lot of garbage time fantasy points. Maybe not equate out to NFL points, but there'd be a lot of garbage time fantasy points. And you're right, they absolutely do equate. Play big time. I love garbage points in fantasy. Great thing. Let's keep going. I got to talk about Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, that offense just looked terrible last week.
Is this the quarterback show?
Well, it's just I'm going down the list. So
we're never going to make it to tight ends at this
rate. Know we're not. That's okay. You want me to go away from quarterbacks? We can go away from quarterbacks. But I want to talk about big men, so shut up.
All right. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
So let's see. Terrible last week. Number 26 on the week. Threw for 276 yards, but no touchdowns, 1 interception, 47 passing attempts, and he still finishes at 26 against New England. I would have to dare to say that New England has his bead in New England. Hasn't beaten Tom Brady there ever. Just doesn't seem to play well on the road. We know that, but New England especially. Are you expecting this to be an issue going forward, or was this just the Patriots shutting him down like they always do, Jen?
No, I think, look, it's hard for anybody to win in Foxborough, not just Ben. And I think what you're seeing here, and I think you saw it a little bit with Rodgers in week one, I think hopefully, depending with this big injury question mark, maybe you're seeing a little bit with Cam, but with these veteran quarterbacks who don't really play in the preseason, the first 3 weeks of the football season sort of become their preseason. So there's rust, they get off to slow starts. And I think you saw a little bit with that with Ben too. I thought there was a little bit of inaccuracy going to Juju, which was surprising to me considering, that's his guy now. I think these older quarterbacks who didn't see a lot of run over the summer are going to look way different come October. So I'm not like concerned about Ben's fantasy value going forward by any means.
How about you, Andy? Oh, wait, you don't want to talk about quarterbacks anyway. So
no, I don't, but I agree with everything that she just said. This guy didn't play at all in the preseason. I mean, he doesn't typically fare well against Belichick and the Patriots. He had his top receiver that he's trying to figure out what the role is as his top receiver who hurts his toe in the game. His next option is the guy that,
oh, man, he looked terrible too.
Moncrief, right?
Oh, yes, Moncrief.
Yeah, couldn't catch.
I mean, I think you got a lot of things happening here. So am I worried? I think it's too soon to say. I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, you know what? He hadn't played at all yet in anything meaningful outside of practice. This is a place, an environment he typically doesn't play well in. And he had his number one option, and maybe only option, go down with the toe injury. So way too soon to wave the white flag on Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay, so let's move over. Let's talk over. Let's talk about a few running backs. One of the big ones for week one was, of course, the Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown connection and what happened there. Of course, we know that Malcolm Brown got all the red zone carries, scored 2 touchdowns. Gurley ended up having good yardage and good yards per carry, but without those red zones, you got to be a little concerned. Plus, he only got the 1 reception. I'll start with you, Jen. Are you worried about Gurley going forward? Is Malcolm Brown going to become a thing all year, or was this just week one and them feeling it out?
I mean, I hope so, and I think the Rams are being overly cautious with Gurley. We know there's an end game with them, and we know it's the Super Bowl. Pretty good shot they make it to the playoffs. I think that's why they're taking him a little bit out of these situations where you have him running into, 6 guys who are 300 pounds. I will say I'm not rostering Malcolm Brown. If I have a piece of that backfield, it's Gurley, and that's it. I don't want any other part of it. And I just, the hope if we do take away some of what McVay has been saying, I kind of got to figure that as they get into the season and Gurley starts getting reps full speed and he starts getting hit and we start getting into when football matters in November, December, maybe the Brown role falls back a little bit. But I mean, we've seen it work. We saw it work with the Saints with Ingram and Kamara. It's just frustrating when you draft Gurley where you did, even if you got him at that discount in the second round, to have his touchdowns poached.
How about you, Andy?
I'm going to ask you like a Jeopardy question.
Oh,
she likes that.
a July trend where everybody panics.
what is? I don't know. I don't know. What is it?
What is Darrell Henderson?
Oh, he was going in the 5th round for a little bit.
Yeah, so now it's okay. So now it's Malcolm Brown. Listen, we just talked about Ben Roethlisberger not playing the preseason. Todd Gurley didn't play the preseason. He's listen, Jim. I sat here and listened to him every Friday night for the last 2 months talk about, I'm taking Todd Gurley everywhere I can.
Well, I did.
And yeah,
I'm happy with it.
And he did. So listen, I wouldn't be doing the show if I didn't trust his fantasy acumen. I'm still buying Todd Gurley. So there you go. I'm listening to the advice of my own co-host here with Todd Gurley. He didn't play at all preseason. He got 97 yards. You could call him whatever you want to call him from week one. Is Malcolm Brown an issue? Sure, he's an issue. It's not going to change. The Rams were on the doorstep of winning it all, and maybe could have had they been a little bit more conservative with Gurley throughout the season. They're not playing for fantasy. They're not playing for you. So maybe this is just a backfield we should avoid. And Gurley's going to have a 200-yard game, a 200-yard week at some point this season. Maybe he's going to have 10 of them. I couldn't tell you that. Point is, this is never going to be a pleasant situation week in to week out. So I would be trying to get out. I would want somebody I felt like I know is the guy. Gurley's the guy if you feel comfortable in his health. Nobody does at this point. So Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, somebody's always going to be there. Give me the guy that I don't – listen, if he has an ACL tear, that's one thing. You can't predict that. But if all systems go, he's the guy I don't have to worry about somebody sneaking into his time. I'm trading Malcolm Brown and Todd Gurley in a package right now for that guy.
Okay, I can go with that. Look, yeah, I'm definitely still on Gurley. I liked what I saw of him in the second half when they finally did unleash him. And he'll get plenty of opportunity to score touchdowns. He may not get all the goal line work, but he'll get some of it, and he'll score from outside the goal line anyway. So I'm not really worried about it all that much. I think it was just week one, them trying to ease him in, and he'll definitely get his. So, again, as Andy says, I've been on him all year. I'm not moving now. Let's talk about Miles Sanders in Philadelphia. What can we expect from Miles Sanders going forward, Andy? What are your thoughts? Do you think he takes over this backfield, or are we still going to look at a committee for the year?
I think he has to. I think they want him to, and that's why I think he has to. I think the talent's there. I definitely believe in it. But I don't think he has a long leash. That's the problem with Miles Sanders. I think they're going to give him every opportunity, but I think they have a lot of chips in pieces in their cupboard that they're going to say, hey, Rook, here, we're giving you the opportunity. You're our future, but if you can't hold it down, you're not going to be in the spotlight forever. And maybe we'll try again next week, but we're trying to win this game today. And there's something to say for that. So I think they have a lot of pieces there. I do like Miles Sanders. I do like the talent. I do think there's something there, but there's more worry for me with Miles Sanders, at least for this year, for 2019. I have more worry about Miles Sanders than I do faith. And long term, I have a ton of faith in him because seeing the tape, and no, I didn't have lunch with him, and I don't know his uncle or anything like that. But I do believe in the talent. It's certainly there. He does things that not everybody can do on a football field. But I still think there's a lot of room to grow for him to learn how to really utilize those talents that he possesses. And I don't know that this is the season that it's just we'll take our chances with you 30 times a game, Rook. There's too much at stake for the Eagles to put everything in Miles Sanders' basket. So I think he'll have his moments, he'll pop. But overall, if you could get something of significant value for him, I would be very tempted to take it, especially in a redraft league.
Actually, one of the guys in the chat room was saying, should he use his number one waiver wire pickup to pick him up because somebody dropped him after week one? I'm saying I'd do that. I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but who are you dropping? That's the problem.
Well, he's got Darrell Henderson. I say drop Darrell Henderson.
Yeah. I would take Miles Sanders.
In a heartbeat.
Heartbeat. 2 heartbeats. A murmur. Done.
That's about all that Henderson has left is a murmur. Like you said, it was crazy because we had on this show a good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, Smitty.
Name dropping, Jen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Smitty. That's a big name. Yeah. He was all over Henderson. We had a big argument about it. He's like, "Oh man, I think Henderson is going to outplay Gurley this year." No, I'm not. I'm just totally dropping Gurley and picking up Henderson wherever I can. Smitty, I hope you're still enjoying that one, buddy. So let's keep going. Let's see. Who else did I want to talk about?
The main question is Sanders worth the waiver claim or wait till an RB1 goes down? I do think he is worth the waiver claim. But if you're grabbing off of waivers, that means he's on your bench primarily. So I would say, I would definitely say he's rosterable.
Is it crazy that I'd kind of prefer Sproles to him? at this point. I think as long as Sproles has a
I
pulse.
can't say that. Oh,
I mean,
too many injuries last couple of years.
I'm saying as long as he's healthy, as long as he's on the field, they use him. And I think in the committee, I want the guy who's catching the ball a little bit more.
I don't think
we'll get that. We'll get that with Sanders. It was week 1 for a rookie. Plus, he did have a touchdown that was called back because of a penalty.
Yes.
So it wasn't like he would have had a really nice game with that. So I'm not dumping him. I do think that Jordan Howard is still going to be involved, still get most of the goal line work, do a lot of the early down work. But I do think that Miles Sanders is going to be the one, once we get into the season, is going to be the guy who's doing most.
I hate that game. I hate that game.
You hate that what?
I hate that game. That he would have had this if he would have had that. That's if my aunt had yellow balls, she'd be my uncle, right? So, I mean that's that game.
Your uncle had yellow balls?
No, I was trying to say.
Holy crap!
I was going with the YOLO. I was going with the YOLO. She mentioned throwing YOLO balls before. Oh, that's the one. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. Like if he had a touchdown that got called back because of a penalty. Come on, maybe he wouldn't have been in the field to have scored the touchdown.
The penalty had nothing to do with the touchdown.
All right, I know. I'm just saying. you open the can for that guy and for that play, then you're opening it for way too much. So, whatever. I'm done.
Whatever.
Are you sure? You're positive now.
I'm done. I want to get to a tight end.
You want to get to a tight end.
We still got receivers to go through.
Well, we're not going to get to them all. So let's do a couple receivers real quick. You brought them up earlier. Let's talk about them a little bit. John Ross, Cincinnati. The first thing I'm going to say is, to me, last week was the first time he actually looked like an NFL wide receiver. He looked like he was running better routes than we've ever seen him since he's been drafted. And, if he could stay healthy, at least until A.J. Green comes back, he should have a couple good weeks. And, I'll throw this to you first, Andy. No, I won't. Screw that. I'll throw it to you first, Jen. What do you think here with John Ross? Is this something new? Could he actually be a guy that really does blossom in year 3 after 2 bad years of basically being called a bust?
Just for the record, Jen, and I want you to answer this, but he's thrown everything to you first. So it was just funny that he said that.
She's our guest, and she's better looking.
I was saying, I'm the guest.
He gets so upset if I don't go to him even. I don't have a list here. I don't go by a list. That's what I go with.
Been 0.
And actually, I've gone to you several times tonight first. Go back and watch it.
I will.
Go ahead, Jen.
But the thing with Brown, he was a first-round pick. And I know you could say, Kevin White was a first-round pick too. But this is a different kind of first-round pick. The talent is there. We've actually seen it.
Ross. Let's just make sure everybody – you said Brown.
Right. No, I'm saying like he was like – you could say how Kevin White was a first-round pick, and that's why people put so much stock in him, right? With John Ross, he's a first-round pick. People put a lot of stock in him. You didn't see it until this week. I've had him in a dynasty league since he was a rookie, and nobody's offered me anything for him ever until this week. Now all the trade offers are coming in for John Ross, right? Can he be the guy? Sure. What's going to happen when A.J. Green comes back? Who knows? Curious where Tyler Boyd was. I don't want to overreact to week 1. I'm excited to see what John Ross becomes. But I just think A.J. Green's coming back a little bit sooner than later. And I think we all know when he comes back, it sort of makes the other guys, fall back down to irrelevancy a little bit.
Well, Boyd actually did better last year when A.J. Green was on the field. So it plays well for him. Let's see what happens when it does happen, and whether or not A.J. Green can actually stay on the field. So let's take another quick look at another wide receiver. Then another one that I want to talk about.
For you, Andy.
He didn't do much last week, but big expectations from a lot of people this week, and that's Mecole Hardman. Now that Tyreek Hill is going to miss a lot of time. The one thing I'll say is Mecole Hardman was on the field for 54 of 59 snaps after Tyreek Hill went down, which is good. Bad side of it is he only had 1 target. So I'll go to you first, Jen. What's your thoughts on Mecole Hardman?
He's what Sammy Watkins was now, right? Sammy Watkins, when Tyreek Hill was on the field, he had these flash in the pan games, but all the concentration for the most part went Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Now that Tyreek Hill is down, all the passing volume is going to be going Kelsey and Sammy Watkins. So look, you've picked him up. He shouldn't be on waivers in any league right now, Hardman. But I don't, like you said, he got the one target last week. If there's obviously a receiver to own in Kansas City right now, it's Sammy Watkins.
Oh, yeah. Watkins looked great. And, the team has come out and said, we finally figured out what was causing him to keep breaking down each year. And we think we've gotten around that with new training methods, new diet and all of that. So let's see if it happens. Because, the kid looked outstanding last week. So we'll have to see if that continues. So let's go to another wide receiver real quick. And the one I got to pick on is Michael Gallup. This Dallas team was exceptional last week. Again, it was against the Giants. But, man, I really loved what Kellen Moore, as the new offensive coordinator, brought to this team. A lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of play-action passes, a lot of passes on first down, something they just didn't do in the past. And Michael Gallup came out and played a great game. So, Jen, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on Michael Gallup?
We saw what we wanted
Andy's
from Gallup.
over there. I can see.
I see you. I see you.
No, she
I want to
actually.
hear your thoughts on Gallup too. So
We'll get to it, but go ahead.
She should be the only one talking about this because she's a huge Cowboys fan. But
huge Cowboys fan. And let me just say about Kellen Moore. Everyone has been complimenting Kellen Moore all week. I'm saying this as politely as I can. Like, shut up and go away. This Kellen Moore announcement back when they named him the offensive coordinator, it was trashed by everybody. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's Linehan 2.0. He's a student of Linehan. Nobody was excited about this Kellen Moore offense until this week.
Were you? I really was. I've been talking about it all preseason because this kid is, I call him a kid, but he really is. He was playing the game a few years ago. But this kid is really, everything I've ever read about him was the kind of guy where he was a coach on the field even when he was playing. He knew the game inside and out. He knew the playbook better than some of the coaches, and it just seems to come to fruition. And I've been talking about it all preseason about I really wanted to see if it was going to come like everybody was saying it was going to come. Would he really change this offense? And to me, he really did. Andy, I know you've been sitting there quietly for a while, so let's move on. No, go ahead, Andy. Get your thoughts.
I got to go back to a lot, but just on Kellen Moore real quick. You know who this sounds an awful lot like? The head coach, Jason Garrett. No?
Who, Kellen? What do you mean? What? Sounds like him?
The story. Like, not a game-winning quarterback, but a coach on the field, a coach in the locker room.
Oh, that way. Yeah. I guess
a game manager, somebody with not a lot of experience that we're gonna take a gamble on and we're gonna stick with him and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they went this route. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's having success in this route. This was we in baseball use the term quad A, right? Which is not quite a major leaguer, but better than AAA, which is the highest form of the minor leagues. He's kind of like that quad A kind of guy where he's not quite that NFL quarterback you really want to buy into, but he's right there. He should be. So he's going to get that opportunity. So to be a coordinator now and be into this, I'm all in. I like it. I like the move. I like the forward thinking of it. Going back to John Ross real quick, this guy could beat Deshaun Jackson. And what's wrong with that? So maybe there's something wrong with that.
It's Friday like that at all. I think she was going to throw something at you.
Well, no, no, that's fine. So John Ross, he could. To me, he could be D-Jax if he's healthy, and that was what he was drafted to be, and that's what he showed you in week 1. So if he's going to be healthy in this new offense, keep firing him up. Mecole Hardman, so talented, based on speed, so raw. I would not be
very raw.
I would not. Listen, you can't teach being able to lap guys and be 20 yards ahead of them. And if the ball's there, be able to catch it. He's going to catch it. But as far as like a week 2 game plan and professional athletes and professional corners and DBs and safeties and linebackers and everything he's got to face, I'm not willing to say that he's ready for that role yet. Michael Gallup, this guy should have been way better last year in year 1. When you look at wide receivers and taking a couple of years to transition, super talented, super refined, was highly regarded as a prospect coming out of Colorado State. Great size, great speed, great hands, great everything. And now he listen, if you had told me the Amari Cooper trade never happened and Gallup was the number 1 in Dallas, I'd still be excited about him. So the fact that he's the number 2 to a guy like Amari, this is a dynamic tandem for the next half decade going forward. So I would say yes. I'm all
See
into
what happens when you let him out of the box.
Michael Gallup. I had to catch up on all the things you made me miss.
And I'll tell you though, I was really impressed by Michael Gallup. I thought he played a strong game. He was making some really nice cuts. He was getting off the line even against press coverage. A couple of things that they had knocks on him for last year. It looked like he really took a step forward with that game this year. I think the kid is absolutely a wide receiver 3 that's got wide receiver 2 upside all day long. So it's going to be really interesting. I really look. I'm a Giants fan. I know they're not going nowhere, and I don't care. That is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. I am interested in seeing this Dallas team really go for it because let's face it. They just have so many weapons. If this team can stay as aggressive as they were in Week 1, this is a team that should go heavy into the playoffs and. Well, of course, probably lose one in game 1, but
Hold on. There's a trade question here, and I'm gonna butcher this name, and I'm gonna enjoy it. But Sean
Vizzacaro.
Is it Vizzacaro? All right. I was gonna. All right, fine. Sean Vizzacaro is getting offered Devontae Adams and Damian Williams for Tyreek Hill and Gurley, and he wants to know should he accept or pass. No. Everybody in the chat is telling him to accept. I'm telling you to accept. I'm wondering what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I take that. If I can get Adams and Williams, I'm okay with giving up Hill, who's going to be out for 4 to 5 more weeks, and Gurley. Look, I love Gurley, but getting Devontae Adams and Williams, I'll take that. Look, McCoy. Yeah, see, now that's one thing I do want to talk about with you is because you were like last week, there's no way McCoy is going to show anything. He's done. He's dusted. I don't care. And he looked pretty damn good to me. How about you, Jen? What'd you like? Did you see McCoy? He looked pretty damn good to me, didn't he?
He did, and he's another one of these older guys. As long as he's playing – he kind of makes the other back on the field tough to play. This trade that's being offered to Sean, and like, I know you can wish things. I wish he was getting offered this trade in like 4 weeks from now because I would say, yes, do it. Like, pull the trigger. Tyreek's coming back soon. You're going to start seeing Gurley ramped up. I would hate to see – it's tough to take this trade right now, but I think –
Well, he's getting Devontae Adams and Williams, I believe.
Right. But I think – I guess what I'm saying is I think in 8 weeks from now, I'd probably want on my team Tyreek and Gurley over Adams and Williams.
Yeah, but the discrepancy of over the next month, the bonus you get for that month while Hill is out, it really makes up for that in my mind. Obviously I have Gurley over Williams.
Right. It's it'd be interesting in a couple weeks from now if that trade were to go through then. But like basically, if he was offered it in a few weeks from now, I'd be saying no. Obviously, today you're saying yes.
Well, there you go. Jen with a different take on it. I love that. Let's cover a couple of tight ends to make Andy happy, and then we're going to cut it off because we always try to get done in an hour. But for some reason, Andy, we just can never get it done. So I'm going to start with Jared Cook, coming off the great year in Oakland, goes to New Orleans. Yeah, it doesn't really have a great game in Week 1. Should people be worried, Andy?
No, because it's still just too prolific of an offense. I'm stuttering because I'm just going back because I wanted to disprove you about the LaShawn McCoy thing. All his work came in the fourth quarter, man. He's still listen, I like Shady, but
well, it was his first game with the team. He just gotten there. It's a totally different offense than the offense he played with. But all I'm saying is when they gave him the opportunity, he looked like a younger guy, and he didn't look like he was toast.
It was a weird game, Jim. You are older than Jen and I almost put together. I am pretty old. I am pretty old as it is now. And listen,
I could be your father.
Yes, you could. And I could have a great Monday. Great Monday. I look like I was in high school. And on Tuesday, I'm not feeling so good, Jim. So yeah.
Well,
so
I'm not
what?
saying he may not be hurting.
So what? He had a great week one in the fourth quarter when it was a weird week and a weird day, everything like that. All right, Jared Cook, John Reed. Jared Cook passed the Bigfoot torch off to OJ Howard. I don't know what that means, but yes, Jared Cook. No, he's in a good offense, and he's showed. As I said, look, we also Greg Olsen last night. You don't have to be a tight end that can run like a gazelle to still be productive. Greg Olsen,
gotta catch it.
I was hurting watching Greg Olsen on some of these routes, but you know what? There he was, wide open, and I'll take this. But he did not look smooth or fluid at all, did Greg Olsen, as a runner. So I'm not worried about Jared Cook, no.
What's your take there, Jen?
I'm not worried about him either. I'm certainly not out on him. If anything, I'm trying to get him. Drew Brees has always been good with tight ends. Obviously there's Jimmy Graham years, Ben Watson. He's just always elevated tight ends. They get a ton of targets in his offense typically. And I think it's safe to say that Drew Brees is an upgrade over Derek Carr. So if he was able to put up those numbers in Oakland, I don't see why we're not going to see it in a couple games in the Superdome this year.
I'll tell you why you're not going to see it for a couple of games in Superdome this year for a couple of reasons. First of all, with Derek Carr, sure, it's stepped down at quarterback, but Carr didn't have anybody else to throw to. Basically for the year, Jared Cook was the guy for most of it, him and Jalen Richard. They were the biggest, basically the biggest receivers all year long for him. And that just was what it was. And Cook ended up having a career year because of it. Now he goes to New Orleans with absolutely a future Hall of Famer at quarterback, Drew Brees. The only problem with that with Drew Brees is he'll spread the ball around all game. He doesn't care whoever's on the field, Josh Hill, Traquan Smith, Ted Ginn. He just consistently spreads the ball around to where he's, usually completing passes to 7 or 8 people every game. And to me, that's the worrisome part with Cook is, sure, he'll have some big games, but he's going to have more games like he had in week one just because it won't be his game that week. And, Traquan Smith goes off for a big game or Ted Ginn goes off for a big game. Some of these other guys.
I know it's a different offense. I know it's a different quarterback, but Jared Cook's only played one game against the Rams. And that was last year. And it was for 12 targets, 9 receptions, and 180 yards. So maybe hold on to Cook this week.
Oh, I'm not saying dump the guy. I'm just saying temper expectations.
No, because I actually agree with what you said at the end of that. But maybe hold on for another week and then dump.
But yeah, let's see. So one other tight end that everybody's talking about, of course, this week is OJ Howard. Let's run through the whole thing. Oh, Arians never used tight ends. Well, he never had a tight end as good as Howard. How could he not use him? Jen, what's your thoughts? Is OJ Howard somebody you're concerned about now? And before the season started, how high did you have him in your rankings? Because I'll be honest, I had him at number 5.
I feel like everyone did, and I wasn't as high on it because, whenever a player is so overhyped like that, I just tend to kind of back off a little bit, especially because I feel like nobody kind of wants to talk about Cameron Brate. He's still there, and we saw him last night. OJ Howard's obviously the better talent. The offense doesn't really suit him, like you mentioned, with Arians. But the issue is with a position like tight end, especially in fantasy, I want the only tight end. And, the truth of the matter is Cameron Brate takes snaps. He's on the field with him and he takes targets, and we saw him targeted last night. And that's more of my issue with Howard is that despite the fact that he's such a better ball player than Brate, Brate still gets opportunities.
Fair enough. What's your take here, Andy?
I follow a lot of smart people, and I have a lot of smart followers. And I saw a nice comment today regarding OJ Howard in that the Tampa Bay line is so deplorable, and he is maybe, if not probably their best blocker, that he's on the field for every snap, but because he's their best inline blocker, he gets called on to do that as opposed to running out for routes. And it made me think back to what was my feeling about him coming out. Coming out of Alabama, there was some inconsistencies. You knew the talent was there. It was dripping. It was there. But one of the things that stood out was to everybody, this was a complete tight end because he was the best blocking tight end to come out of college in years. And I haven't heard anybody talk about a tight end coming out with the same level of enthusiasm as far as a blocker since O.J. Howard. So that is definitely –
except for Hockenson.
Well, no, Hockenson was considered to be a complete tight end and a good blocker, still not to the level of O.J. Howard coming out. So that is a very
subjective opinion there.
Whatever. One's a 99 in Madden, the other's a 95. They're both fucking good. The point being is the point being
fucking good. Did you say pucking?
I said Hockin good, but
that's what he said. I heard it.
Hockin good, but no, I think there's a legitimacy to that O.J. Howard might never be in this offense on Tampa Bay with this line, the offensive statistician that we want him to be. So, it might take a move like we saw with Eric Ebron, who coincidentally was somebody that O.J. Howard was kind of compared to coming out of college just because of the freak physical abilities that he possesses. It might take him leaving Tampa Bay to really tap into that talent he has. But then I'd even still warn that even going back to college, there were some inconsistencies with his, influence on the offense as far as a receiver. So anyway,
that was easy for you to say.
No, it wasn't. I don't dislike O.J. Howard still as a player. But as a fantasy player, it really might not ever happen.
Well, look, I'll go on to say that, Coach came out and said, look, we know he's got talent, but he has to play better. When the coach is calling you out and saying you're just not playing well, not a really good thing to have happen.
I think that's unfair to him.
Wait. You think it's unfair to him? Well, take that up with Pro Football Focus, who ranks him as the last tight end in all tight ends that qualify with enough plays. They've listed him last so far this season.
What do you want me to tell you?
But I'm telling you, that's usually a pretty good indicator as far as I'm concerned. How about you, Jen? Obviously, he's not doing something right. Look, he got one reception last night.
Stubborn.
Yeah. He got one reception last night, but it was taken away because of his pass interference penalty. That's not good. So obviously something's not right there. So we'll see. I think everybody has to start tempering expectations. Look, we're going to have one clear view of what he can do. Next week, he plays the Giants. Giants just get torched by tight ends. If he can't do anything against the Giants, at that point, I'm going to recommend dropping his ass. It's as simple as that. If you can't do anything against the Giants, you need to go. And he won't be on any more of my teams. I'll just put him on waiver wires for somebody because that's just terrible. If you can't do it against the Giants, you can't do it against anybody. So on that note, a great show. Jen, I want to thank you for joining us, coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. And don't you even start over there. You be quiet.
He's never had a 100-yard game. That's crazy.
O.J. Howard?
Yeah, that's kind of.
I believe it. He's a little overhyped. I'm sorry to say it to the community that loves him so much.
He's only had 2 in the 90s. He had 1 for 98, 1 for 96. Nothing else above 78. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Well, there you go. And that's obviously one of the things that PFF is focusing on. Who knows? Jen, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, how they can find you, all that good stuff. And folks, if you are not following Jen, you need to rectify that as soon as possible.
Yeah, totally follow me on Twitter. I love to talk about football while I'm at work. Don't tell my boss. My Twitter is at FFDegenerate with a J. During the week, I have an article that goes up earlier in the week on CBS Sportsline about sort of players who we can project might have an increase in targets that week. Additionally, I do a piece where we look back on the things that we learned from the week before, and then a piece that's more of like a Vegas focus sort of looking at 3 games with some interesting lines and what sort of fantasy implications they might have. And then starting this week, tomorrow, it'll be up on FootballDiehards.com. There's a cheat sheet I put together. It's an Excel file. It's just got all the target, snaps, scoring data, salaries on DraftKings and FanDuel each week, but spread it'll build over the course of the season, daily fantasy points. And then I also take a look at historical betting data, 3-year data, 5-year data, 10-year data of percentages of against the spread hits and over under hits. And again, on Twitter,
that sounds like a hell of a spreadsheet.
It's it takes a little while to build the initial one, but then as the season goes on, it just grows and grows and grows. And it's just what I use for my research. And my good friend Bob Harris is a big fan of it. Yeah, so it's good. Check it out. I'll send it to you guys when I'm done with it.
And I'm a name dropper.
He is a longtime friend of the show and a friend of mine, and man, there's not many people better. I am a huge fan of Mr. Bob Harris. Always have been. Even when back in the day when I first started, he started finding everything on the internet. He was one of the first people. Him and Greg Kellogg were like the 2 first guys I really followed a lot and listened to a lot. So definitely guys I go back with. And Andy, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
My Twitter handle, as you can see, is up there at People's Pen. Probably the best way to find me. I do weekly rankings. I finished 19th Fantasy Pros week 1. I'm looking to improve on that. I've been around top 20 the last couple of years, so I'm hoping to finish top 10 this year. So go check that out. Expand the box.
Well, that's a pretty lousy start. Well, top 19. You want to finish top 10. And 19 is not really close to 10.
How many records are in this year?
Over 100. I'd rather be top 19 than 29th.
I'm just giving you crap, dude.
I
don't do those rankings, and I'll tell you why. I'm my own worst enemy. I get in my own head way too much, and I overthink everything to the nth degree. And like, what if this happens? What if that? And I just drive myself nuts. Every time I look at it, I got to change something every freaking time. And I just decided I'm not doing the damn things anymore. I hate them.
No, all good. But I mean, listen, it's fun and it opens up some conversation. I get into it with people who tell me my rankings suck, and then I expose them for them DMing me all the questions they ask, and then I lose about 20 followers on Twitter. So I like to, be transparent with my drama. So follow me on Twitter for all that stuff. But really, check out my website, expandtheboxscore.com. We have phenomenal data.
Yeah, they sure do, folks. They really do. They got a lot of great stuff out there,
and it's super cheap. It's $15 for a full season of NFL or NCAA, or $25 for the whole football bundle. NCAA, we have targets broken down. You can't find college targets anywhere except us, for at least for that price. So go check that out. But I'm really proud of the staff we've assembled. The content we're putting out. Matt Midlakowski has been handicapping games. He's 9-2 to start the season, predicting games against the lines and the over-unders. 9-2. That's an 818 winning percentage. That's insane.
That is insane.
John Helmkamp is doing his rush rating, which is kind of like a reception perception for running backs, where he was 6 for 6 in week 1 with guys he was telling you to start and guys he was telling you to bench. Now he upped it to 4 to start and 4 to bench. So he's got 8. Anyway, so listen, I'm really proud of the team we put together. I'm leaving a couple guys out right now, but go check it out. The content is phenomenal. Expandtheboxscore.com. You can find me on Twitter and find links to it all. Thanks for watching. I do this every week with Jim, and we have some great guests, and we'll keep it coming for you. So keep tuning in.
Hopefully we can get Jen to come back and join us again soon.
She could be our weekly co-host if you want. I'm down with that.
Hey, if she was up for that, I'd ask her right now. Jen, you want to be our weekly co-host?
I mean, I don't know that I could commit to weekly. I have a pretty crazy work schedule, but anytime, seriously. And Andy, I apologize. I sub to everything. I realized I'm not subbing to Expand the Box Score, but right now I am. I'm literally clicking on it right now. So
you go.
It's all good.
Here I come.
All right.
Right on the show too. She's not shy. So you can find me, of course, here every Friday night with Andy. Every Wednesday night, I do a podcast called the What the Fantasy Football Podcast with Tony Sincata and Mike Blewett. Of course, every weekday, Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, I am on the Fantasy Football Frenzy on the new Sports Grid television network. You can find us on Zumo TV, channel 719, or right on YouTube. Every Sunday now at 9 o'clock, I join Joe Pisapia for Roto Experts in the morning from 9 to 10. We go over all that day's games. We even bring in Davis Mateka later in the show to go over some DFS plays as well. So lots of things going on. Follow me over at FFChamps, and you can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz pretty much any time of the day or night. I don't really sleep much these days. As you get older, you find that sleep doesn't really, I sleep when I'm dead is kind of the reality of it when you get old. And I'm really old.
Is it Matek?
Yeah, I know. I always say his name wrong like 82 freaking times in a row. I'll say it differently every stinking time. Medic. I say it wrong every freaking time. Yeah. It is Matic. I don't know why. It's just there's some kind of thing in my head that makes it nuts, and I go crazy over it. But it is what it is. You know who I'm talking about, so that's all that matters. So again, thank you everybody for listening. Don't forget to check us out, Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. You can find all our podcasts at fulltimefantasy.com or all over Twitter with all the retweets and everything there, everywhere. If you're not seeing them, you're not looking. And, of course, thank you for being here, coming out, joining us. Give us a thumbs up, give us a rating, give us a comment. Whatever you could do, we greatly appreciate it. And we will see you all next week. Have a great weekend and good luck.
Friday the 13th. Go watch something scary.
Yeah, happy Triskaidekaphobia Day. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Seriously.
Of course. Full moon, Friday the 13th. Do something crazy.
I thought this was something crazy.